I would wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning to get to my classes at 8 a.m. and I'll arrive exactly on the dot.
You have to smarten up. The public is getting bigger, city is getting bigger, and I think they should increase more buses and streetcar.
There would always be delays. Now I know TTC transit can't help it, but you know, it would be nice to get home without having to get home at 12.
Yeah, I'm up north a couple hours, so I drive to Oshawa and take a train to Union Station, and then I take transit like the TTC anywhere I need to go to.
You are frustrated, and we hear you. That's why tonight we are kicking off our special City Commute series. In the coming days and weeks, we'll be exploring your daily pain points when it comes to transit and driving in the GTA and possible solutions. First tonight, a warning from a city councillor about how Toronto's love of streetcars could impact emergency response times.
They don't want these damn streetcars blocking up our city.
Right inside TTC shelters, just like this one, across the city. Buses versus streetcars. Which ones move our city faster? Well, CityNews has learned that from one city councillor, at least, he says that first responders have reached out to him. And they say here on the 501, this is the longest streetcar line in our city where streetcars go daily. He says this past summer, when buses replaced streetcars here, first responders reached out to him and said, in situations where seconds and minutes can make all the difference between life and death, buses instead of streetcars were the way to go.
A Toronto firefighter reached out to us and said, "Look, councillor, we are responding much quicker. It is easier for us to be getting to calls." And when you have that type of outreach from our first responders and from a variety of people, as I said, transit commuters, people who live in the area, who live outside the area, I think it was a win for everybody. Everyone was moving quicker, it was more efficient, more effective, and I hope that we continue to look at this.
But it's not.
A motion by Councillor Michael Ford for a study to look at what works better on Queen Street, streetcars or bus, was rejected by Council this fall because it was redundant, according to Council. The streetcars were already up and running again. Ford believes some of his colleagues are hiding their heads in the sand and don't want to see what the data might reveal. Though the TTC tells CityNews that they already have compiled their own numbers and claim the bus isn't any quicker than the streetcar.
The city a long time ago decided streetcars was going to be the way that we moved people around in the downtown core in place of subways or other methods, and that's the way that we're going to go forward.
As the city evolves, does it need to be looked at again, perhaps?
Well, one of the things that we do, for example, if you look at Spadina or down on the on Harbourfront, there are dedicated rights-of-way for the streetcars. Those are the kinds of things that allow streetcars to move even better in traffic. So, I mean, those are decisions that would be made by the city councils of the day, but certainly in terms of getting people around the city, streetcars have proven to be very efficient. Fewer vehicles, more people.
Ahead on City News, we'll hear from one transit expert who says why he believes the Transit Commission is putting operating costs ahead of getting you from A to B in the most timely manner possible.
And for many of you out there, the daily commute is a peerless form of psychological torture, but just how bad is it? We asked you to finish this sentence. Being stuck in rush hour traffic is worse than... All right, May on Twitter says it simply stinks. It's worse than being locked in a tiny bathroom full of people who ate beans. Sounds like the newsroom after the Burrito Boys moved in. Sandra compares it to a pain cocktail, saying it's worse than a toothache, fever, migraine, and tonsillitis all at the same time. Sounds rough. Bruce, though, says it's worse than nothing because it is a choice. There are many alternatives, and you are the problem. Finally, Tyler gets snippy, saying it's worse than getting a botched circumcision. Well, thankfully, I'm a short walk away from work, so it's no skin off my back.
I turn it on and it just gives me security on the road.
Your commute caught on camera. I'm Amanda Ferguson, and dashboard cameras like this one are changing the way that both police and insurance companies look at crashes. Tonight, why more drivers are opting to have one more eye on the road.
I have clients who come to me with incredible videos of how the accident happened.
nice, smooth drive into work can be hampered immediately by a crash or any other incident that blocks a live lane of traffic. Well, this morning, Mayor John Tory announcing his plan to keep traffic moving on both the Gardiner Expressway and the Don Valley Parkway.
I am here today to say that we are making the quick clear squads permanent in the morning rush hours as of now.
Quick clear squads are dedicated city transportation staff who respond to collisions, stalled vehicles, and other incidents that block traffic during the morning rush. Crews will use a city crash truck and signboard, along with a cleanup team to help reopen the roads faster. The city says a pilot project shows these rapid response teams can get to a crash within 30 minutes.
And this was quite a change from what oftentimes was 2 or 3 hours before we could dispatch people to get these lanes cleared away.
During the 2-month pilot project, crews responded to 330 calls, 150 stalled cars, and laid 58 charges against contractors whose work materials or utility trucks were illegally blocking the road.
I wouldn't mind speed up the traffic. I think it would be good to help keep congestion and drivers moving on the highway.
Shockingly, the top reason city workers say they have to jump into action are head scratchers. The most common is people running out of gas. That's followed by distracted drivers who stop in a live lane to use their phones. The mayor is asking drivers to be friendly to these crews when they see them out on the roads because they're out there for a purpose.
The city workers tell me they get half of a peace sign from people. The one finger salute, I won't take the other finger down because people might misunderstand that, because they think these vehicles that you see behind me are just there sweeping up the streets or doing repairs. They are actually crash trucks that are there to protect the drivers in stalled cars until they can clear them away.
Tory says the program will be expanded to include the afternoon rush hour and weekends starting sometime in the new year. Near the Gardiner in York, Tammy Sutherland, City News.
3 people are injured, one seriously following a 5-vehicle collision involving a loaded dump truck in Oshawa. It happened just after 8 this morning on Harmony Road near the ramp to the 401. A mother and her 2-month-old baby girl were treated in hospital for minor injuries. Emergency crews had to free another woman who became trapped inside her vehicle.
EMS and fire quickly extricated that female. That female was worked on the scene, and she was rushed to a local hospital with life-threatening injuries. Well, I know it was a fully loaded dump truck, so obviously the weight of that vehicle is going to be pretty heavy and substantial compared to the other vehicles.
Investigators are still trying to determine how the crash happened. One witness told City News the cars were stopped for traffic when the dump truck came over the hill and hit one of the vehicles, pushing them into each other. The police say it's still too early to determine whether or not if charges will be laid.
A Toronto court decided today that a lawsuit against Harvey Weinstein can go ahead even though the Hollywood mogul can't be tracked down. The civil claim alleges Weinstein sexually assaulted an Ontario actress nearly 2 decades ago. Also named in the suit is Weinstein's former assistant, who couldn't be reached either. In court today, the actress's lawyer says they tried and failed to serve Weinstein at his home in Connecticut and believe he could be in Arizona or Europe. Now, the court must wait for Weinstein's team to file a defense and to weigh in on a publication ban. The actress is seeking to shield her identity. She also alleges she was sexually assaulted by Weinstein while working on a Toronto-based movie. She's seeking millions of dollars in compensation for the distress and anxiety she says it caused. None of the allegations have been proven in court.
New details about the gunman who opened fire on a small Texas church, killing more than 24 people. Tonight, why officials say text messages show them the attack was domestic in nature. And we're learning more about 2 local men who chased down the shooter and why they didn't hesitate.
We've had a long night with our children and grandbabies that we have left.
Most of our church family is gone. Our building is probably beyond repair, and the few of us that are left behind lost tragically yesterday.
Heartbreak in a tiny Texas town. That was Pastor Frank Pomeroy and his wife Sherry. Their teenage daughter Annabelle was one of more than 24 people killed in the shooting at their church. The parents weren't there when the gunman opened fire.
Belle was surrounded yesterday by her church family that she loved fiercely, and vice versa.
A lone gunman entered this First Baptist church dressed in black, wearing a ballistic vest and a mask with a skull on it, firing an assault rifle.
The suspect we can confirm is Devin Patrick Kelly. He is 26-year-old white male.
A church neighbor, now hailed as a hero, grabbed his own gun, firing on the shooter before the suspect drove off. The Good Samaritan then got into a stranger's vehicle.
Came, jumped in my truck and said, he just shot up the church. We got to go get him. And I said, okay, let's go.
High-speed chase ensued before the shooter lost control of his vehicle.
The gunman never got out of his vehicle.
We know during that pursuit, the suspect used his cell phone to notify his father that he had been shot and didn't think he was going to make it.
It's believed the gunman died of self-inflicted gunshot wounds. And we're learning more about the shooter who served in the U.S. Air Force. He was court-martialed in 2012 on charges of assaulting his wife and child, given a bad conduct discharge and confinement for 12 months.
There was a domestic situation going on within this family. The suspect's mother-in-law attended this church. We know that he had made threatening texts from him.
Speaking from Japan, Donald Trump saying mental health is the problem, not access to guns.
We have a lot of mental health problems in our country, as do other countries. But this isn't a guns situation.
An official saying today the shooter did not have a license to carry. As for the victims, they range in age from about 17 months to 77 years old. And reportedly, one of those people killed the gunman's grandmother-in-law. A developing story out of Abbotsford, BC. At least 2 police officers have been injured after gunfire erupted on a street. You can hear the sound of gunfire in a video tweeted to our sister station News 1130 in Vancouver. It also shows a police cruiser ramming a vehicle at high speeds. Abbotsford police have confirmed at least 2 officers are hurt after an incident near the Abbotsford Auto Mall. A suspect is in custody, and police say there are no outstanding public safety concerns. The Independent Investigations Office, which investigates officer-involved incidents that result in death or serious harm, has been called in.
The extra weight, scrutiny, and stigma that I face while traveling in Canada, my birth country, are intimidating enough.
Parents and children who have endured airport delays because a young person's name matches one on Canada's no-fly list are pressuring the government to solve the issue. Among the concerned parents was Heather Harder, who says her family hasn't flown internationally with their son in 3 years.
We've only flown domestically. We're actually too nervous to fly internationally. When he's a young man, it won't be an easy, oh look, it's a 3-year-old and this isn't the person that we're worried about. And so I guess just that I want this to be resolved sooner than later.
The government is proposing an amendment to the Secure Air Travel Act that would allow informing parents if their child is not on the no-fly list. The legislation would also allow federal officials to electronically screen air passenger information against the list, but it would require a whole new computer system. 2 years after Paris was